going all in, get the edge you need to succeed. I'm Dr. Erin McKinley, and today we have another awesome spotlight session with Becky Wojcik from the Westchester University Dietetic Internship based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. All right, welcome Becky to the podcast. To get us kicked off with this episode, tell us a little bit about you, your background, your journey to RD, and how you landed at Westchester.
Great, yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Erin. So I have been a registered dietitian for over 15 years. My journey started at Westchester University. I was an undergrad DPD student there that graduated from Westchester and decided to go on to do a dietetic internship. Westchester's in Pennsylvania, so one of the local programs that was in my area was Immaculata University. So I completed my internship there and also completed my master's degree. And after completing both the internship and the master's, I went on to be a clinical dietitian for a couple years at a local hospital. Also, I did clinical management and food service management. And then as I kind of continued in those roles, I decided that I really loved to teach. I'd always taken on interns and students in that clinical manager role or as a dietitian, and wanted to start to go into academia. So I started as a adjunct faculty at both Westchester and then later on at Immaculata. And then Immaculata had a position open for assistant director. So I served as assistant director to their dietetic internship for a couple years. And then recently in 2019, Westchester started our own dietetic internship program. So I was fortunate enough to secure that position and have been there ever since. This is our second year of having interns, and currently we have 19 out of 20 in our cohort, and we're really excited to continue on that journey. So I really love educating students, be a part of their career path, and then also just take the clinical and food service and even community experience that I've had into the forefront.
All right, perfect. Well, tell us all about your program.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. So as I said before, Westchester is in Pennsylvania, but we are a 100% online graduate level program with a dietetic internship. So I will tell you about both the internship and our master's degree. So for those of you that see me on your screen, there's me, Becky Wojcik. I'm the dietetic internship director. And then Dr. Mary Beth Gilboy, she is our graduate coordinator. So she's the one that deals with our Master's of Science in Community Nutrition, which is our master's program. And then Evan Daney is our assistant director of graduate enrollment in our College of Health Sciences. So some programs that we have at Westchester University are an accelerated Bachelor's of Science to Master's of Science degree. So for example, a DPD program, and during that last senior year, you can actually take graduate level courses. But the things that I'll talk about most are our Master's of Science in Community Nutrition. So that can be a standalone program. So 33 credit, 100% online program that's done from afar. And then with that, we also have a Master's of Science in Community Nutrition with the dietetic internship. So that can be done, it's 42 credits, it's 100% online, 15 of those credits are the internship. And then we also have our internship that's just standalone. So for students that already have a DPD verification statement and a master's degree in nutrition, they can do just our dietetic internship, which is that certificate program. In the master's program combined with the dietetic internship, it's a 2-year program, and I'll show the kind of curriculum in a minute, but it's part of those 2 years is 11 months of supervised practice experience, and at the end of the program, you're eligible to take the registration exam. And same with the postmaster's dietetic internship. It's 11 months of supervised practice experience with graduate level courses that you take. It's 15 credits, and you're eligible to take the RDN exam at the end of the program. So our next thing is that we have a focus on community nutrition. It integrates our master's degree into our dietetic internship program. So we have just a longer community rotation than maybe some other programs do. And then we also incorporate outpatient clinical nutrition for 8 weeks in with our inpatient clinical nutrition as well. We do a 3-day orientation typically on campus in August. This year, of course, with the pandemic, we did it virtually, but in the future, we hope to come back on campus. That's the only time a student would have to come to campus if they're from another state or out of town, not near Westchester in Pennsylvania. We also have very affordable tuition. So we are a state school, and we have affordable in-state and out-of-state tuition that we find pretty reasonable for your master's degree in the dietetic internship. The other part of our internship is its distance. So you get to select your own preceptors in your geographic location. You don't need to move to Westchester or come here, like I said, unless you would like, the only time you'd have to come is for the orientation. Our rotations are completed between late August and mid-May, and they coincide with our academic semester. Some fun things in our program is that we have some innovative experiences and learning opportunities. So for example, all of our courses are taught at the graduate level by doctorally prepared faculty, and they really guide you through the projects. And then the students also have me as their dietetic internship director, that I solely focus on the internship and supporting the interns throughout all of their experiences, as well as during the coursework. We do clinical simulation, which this year we are still doing, either in person or virtually, depending on students and their ability to come. And we have in the past done a gamification experience. So if you see the picture here, it's actually an escape room that we planned last year to walk students through the nutrition care process in a fun way. A lot of people remember it specifically because they had forgotten how to calculate BMI. And when you're in a room without your cell phone and without the internet, you have to make sure you're able to do that, with a calculator. So it was a really great experience for our interns that year. We also have all of our students attend a professional conference. And then we also really try to create a virtual community with our interns through courses and online meetings. Sometimes virtual or online programs or distance programs, I've heard that students can feel disconnected from maybe their other interns or from the program itself. But maybe Rebecca, our intern that will speak tonight, will talk a little bit about how that has been created, or we try to make sure that's created and everybody feels supported. So for our internship, this is a 2-year plan. Usually the first year is the MSCN program if you don't already have a master's degree. It's 9 credits a semester. And over the summer, we have an advanced medical nutrition therapy class that's at the graduate level that really prepares you for all of your experience, but especially for clinical before you go into your clinical experiences and supervised practice experiences in the second year. So during the second year, the highlighted areas there, we do community, and actually this year we do food service in the fall. And then in spring, the clinical 1 and clinical 2 is done in the spring. And then at the end of it all, if you're in the MSCN DI plan, it culminates with a nutrition capstone, which is a research project. The total program, if it's the MSCN DI program, is 42 credits completed over 2 years. And typically, the students would apply once they're in the master's program to our pre-select process. So we do have a pre-select dietetic internship for those students that are already in our master's program and have completed 9 credits. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in more detail. So eligibility for our internship, we do not accept interns or candidates right out of undergrad. We do accept students that are either currently in our program with 9 credits, and they have to have maintained a GPA of a 3.0 and have a DPD verification statement from the undergraduate or graduate level, depending on where you got your DPD from, or a student that has earned a master's degree in nutrition with a minimum GPA of 3.25 and a dietetic program verification statement from your DPD program. So this is just a little flow chart to let you know if you are a current undergraduate student and you're interested in our program, you can apply to our master's degree between November and March. We do have rolling admissions though, so we definitely take graduate level applications after March, even up to August. And then once you're accepted, you would register for fall classes. Then the first year of graduate school, students typically take 9 credits, which is full time, in the spring and the fall. And by January, students typically apply for pre-select. And we're going through that right now for the upcoming 2021 to 2022 cohort. And then once you're accepted in the dietetic internship, the second year of graduate school is really mostly your dietetic internship courses with an additional 1 or 2 courses fall and spring. And then you'd be finishing the capstone and be eligible for the registration exam at the completion of the program. This is just, again, like kind of a way to think about it. If you've been out of undergrad for a little bit, you still can, of course, apply for the MSCN as the same flow within our program. And then for students that already have a master's degree in nutrition or a related kind of, we do take public health with a focus in nutrition if you have an MPH, or we can also look at specific master's degree that we could consider depending on what the courses were. But if you also have a DPD and the master's degree, you can apply for our spring match, which this year is coming up in February. Usually it's February 15th. We do participate in DICUS. Since we're not necessarily a future education model, we are a master's degree with an internship program. We still apply, go through DICUS. And this is just a graduate school postmaster's dietetic internship certificate. So you take the one class in the summer, some of the dietetic internship courses and experiences in the fall and the spring. And then at the end of May, when the semester ends and all the accreditation and experiences are complete, then you're eligible for the registration exam as that type of a student. Some of this has changed a little bit this year, but overall, we typically do about 7 to 8 weeks of each type of rotation, and we have 4 rotations. So as a distance dietetic intern applicant, you would be completing a community rotation and a food service rotation in the fall of 2021. Community for us is typically WIC, a food bank, some SNAP education programs, child and adult care food programs, congregate meals. We even have a lot of students really enjoy the retail space, like a grocery store, in the community setting. And then food service management can be done in school nutrition, a hospital, a long-term care site, corporate food service, higher education. There's a lot of opportunities for food service. We have a winter break between fall and spring, and then they come back to do Clinical 1, which is an inpatient experience, about 7 weeks of that. That could be done at a large hospital, small hospital, subacute care, rehab. We do allow long-term care as well. And then Clinical 2 is typically done after that with, that's outpatient. Many of our interns find great experiences either in private practice or diabetes education centers, dialysis centers. And many of these, especially with community and Clinical 2, we do encourage students maybe to do an experience 2 different places during those times so that they can get a well-rounded experience. So I've had students do, for example, at community, maybe a couple weeks at WIC, and then maybe a couple weeks at ShopRite, which is a grocery store here in Pennsylvania. I know that many students get a little worrisome about securing preceptors, and we've had the successful ability for all of our students to be able to secure preceptors. It does take a little bit more work, but I think that it's very important sometimes for students to make those connections with the preceptors, and then they can find a really good fit geographically. And typically what I found is students have no problem finding community, food service, and Clinical 2 preceptors. It's always the Clinical 1 or the inpatient preceptors that tend to be more challenging. And I always work with the students to try to help them find and reach out to those people in their area. So the first tip I would give is to research facilities in your geographic location. Many times this is the time where students really have to sell themselves and put their best foot forward, showing what they can bring to the table as an intern, especially in a clinical setting. It's also helpful to contact the DI director of the program that you're applying to. So for example, I have many students reach out to me ahead of time to see if we already have some affiliations with some of the either local hospitals or local community sites or food service where they're located, and I can often connect people if we have connections in those areas. It's also helpful to ask professors or other students or former interns for their recommendations. And we've had that be very successful for some of our interns. We also have students that establish a relationship with potential preceptors. For example, they might already work at a hospital site or a WIC center or clinic, or maybe have a connection through their friend or family. And that usually helps to establish a rapport with the person that you're asking to help you with the clinical or food service or community rotation. Right now, it's maybe not as might not have the ability to visit someone in person, but calling and emailing is usually helpful in reaching out to potential preceptors. I always suggest to students that they try to make them stand out for themselves. Just cold calling doesn't always work, so you have to really make a case for yourself of why the potential place should take you as an intern. I also always suggest that the students send their resume, their updated professional resume, to a site that they're asking if they're going to do it via email. You also always want to be prepared and do your research so that you know what that site is about, and that really helps. We have a local food bank, for example, in this area that takes our interns often, and it's always very helpful. They already know a little bit about the community that's served. Or the programs that they already have established. And a lot of that information can be found now online, so it's really helpful. I also suggest for students to always follow their interests, because some of us all have different dreams and aspirations in nutrition and dietetics. For example, some students really want to be involved with children. And so what you can do with our program is customize it to that demographic. For example, if you wanted to do your food service in the school nutrition arena, you would have access to children. And then if you did a WIC rotation and maybe a Head Start, that also gives you a great opportunity to be around kids. And then sometimes in clinical too, there's some opportunities where a local hospital, like a children's hospital, could take them for some outpatient time. So you would really get experience with that population. It's also one of the things, and I've always tried to encourage our students to stay hopeful. Sometimes calling and emailing, especially during this time, it's very challenging. But I've had all of our interns be able to successfully secure preceptors after staying hopeful and following some of these steps. So it's been wonderful. So I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca. She's one of our current interns in our 2020 to 2021 cohort. And Rebecca Ruoff, she was actually an undergraduate at Westchester and continued our master's program, and now is a postmaster's dietetic intern. So go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay, thanks, Becky, and thanks for having us, Erin. Hi, everyone. I don't want to be repetitive, but I did learn a lot of stuff from Becky. So a lot of stuff that I had prepared was what Becky already said, but I'll go through what I have. Like Becky said, my name's Rebecca Ruoff. I'm a current dietetic intern of WCU's 2020 to 2021 Dietetic Internship program. I want to start by sharing why I chose to attend WCU for my dietetic internship. First off, I knew that I was interested in looking into Westchester's program because I went there for both my undergrad and my graduate program. So I already knew that I loved the staff and the school. But, you know, it's not just because of that. I did research the program to make sure that it was the right fit for me. And there were specific qualities that stuck out that I would like to share with you today. So I really like the balance of the community food service, clinical, inpatient, and outpatient rotations. Like Becky said, it is a community focused program. But each rotation is 8 weeks long, which it seemed like it would be a good enough time to gain an efficient amount of experience in each one. And I'm still in my internship right now. But during the past 2 rotations that I've had, my intuition was right. And during my community rotation, I even split up time during 2 different preceptors. And I still felt as if I learned a lot from both places with that amount of time. So another big plus to Westchester's program is the ability to research and choose your own preceptors, like Becky said. And it may seem like it's stressful, and I don't want to throw out the word stressful, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It will be stressful. But for one, you'll be able to find places near you, so you won't need to relocate. And more importantly, you really can search around to try to find dietitians that you would want to work with. I mean, think about it. This will be almost a full year of your life, so it's important to make sure that you're excited where you're working and who you're interning for. As Becky said, to sell yourself, this really helps you build connections before the internship begins. So I thought that it was, even though it was stressful emailing so many people, it was important to do that because it helped me build those connections before the internship even started. So just one more thing about the program while I was researching was the medical nutrition therapy summer course, which we were required to take before the internship even started, was actually a huge help. As we all know, clinical nutrition is very complicated, so there's really no such thing as too much practice. The course was very welcoming, so it's a lot of information, but the professor was extremely helpful. She didn't put pressure on us at all. She made it very clear that we were capable, but she just wanted us to continue to learn, feed off of each other, rather than focus on grades, and just really try to understand before we went into those clinical rotations, so we felt confident in what we were doing. So I really appreciated having that class that we had to take. So advice that I would give to dietetic intern applicants is starting to look for preceptors early. It's never too early to start asking around, because the worst thing that someone can say to you is that they're not looking that far ahead, and to ask again at a later time. I remember asking so early because I'm a planner, so I just always want to be planning ahead of time. So, just always start looking early, always start researching around. Also, don't freak out and don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm a person of questions, so I ask a lot of questions, and I think that helped me in the long run. Most people are going to be more than happy to share their knowledge and help you along the way. They know what you're going through, and they know that it's stressful, but it will all be worth it. So reach out to dietitians that you know, family, friends, anyone that can even give you a small amount of advice, because it will go a long way. And I know that Becky mentioned that too. Reach out to anyone that you know. I mean, that helped me so much. I reached out to anyone and everyone that I knew, and even if they could give me a small amount of advice, it helped out a lot. So this year, and what this year in the program has taught me, as we all know, this year has not been the easiest, and it's not really the internship that I was expecting. But I was lucky to be an intern at Westchester because it's still given me a lot of opportunity, and I really felt like I was supported through this whole year. And, I wasn't in person the whole time, but I did in person for part of my rotation, and then I was virtual the other part, but I still felt like I got everything that I needed to out of it. So Becky made sure that everyone was set up with what they needed to do. Having that virtual experience was still extremely important and beneficial. And I felt like I got the full experience that I needed. So, the unexpected is always possible. And with Westchester, it set us up in a way where with clinical right now, it's kind of up in the air. But they're setting up a clinical for people who can't actually go in person. So that means a lot, because we'll be able to, make sure that we're getting done what we need to on time and learning what we need to. So I'm still in my internship, but some highlights for the year that have been for me was just gaining personal and professional skills. So this internship gives you the experience of learning how to present yourself in a workplace environment, especially if you're a new graduate and you haven't had experience in a full-time job yet. I've been meeting new people on a day-to-day basis, whether it be in person or email or Zoom. Therefore, you'll learn to interact with colleagues personally and professionally. Exploring different roles of dietitians. It's extremely interesting to learn about the roles that dietitians have, and it's a lot more than I even thought. So if you're unsure of which path you want to take, this internship will certainly help you get there. It's definitely not a cut and dry field. So, you'll see all different dietitians. It might not even just be your preceptors. It will be who your preceptors introduce you to. So you'll learn a lot. Networking with other dietitians. Networking is always an important thing to do. I really enjoyed learning about the pathway that my preceptors took to get where they are right now. So whenever there was downtime, I would always ask them, where have you been? How'd you get to where you are? It's also important for potentially getting a job. You can always reach back out to them later on too. So always network. That's what I say. And then building lifelong relationships, whether it be with your preceptors, your professors, your fellow interns, or anyone that you meet along the way. And then, of course, stepping into the shoes of a dietitian, gaining hands-on experience, which in my eyes is the most important part. That's why I think the internship is so important, because you really need to get that hands-on experience to feel confident in what you're doing with your career. So just to end off, I just have two quick quotes. The journey matters more than the destination. And this quote really sticks out to me because, yes, we all want to make it to the end to be RDs, but I highly encourage everyone to make sure that you remember this quote when you're in your internship, and to enjoy the journey day by day, not just try to get to the end, because the people that you meet along the way will be the ones that impact you, and hopefully you'll impact other people too. But the experiences that you have will be the ones that shape you. And then lastly, the only source of knowledge is experience, which is why I think that this internship was created and made, because, we learn so much in school. We finally get to a place in our life that we need to apply our knowledge, yet sometimes it's not as easy as it looks. So your dietetic internship will prepare you for your first job as a dietitian. And hopefully it will give you the confidence and the experience that you need, because trust me, it is necessary. I do think that you need this experience to really embark on your career. I'm not even done mine yet, and I'm excited for everyone to do their internship. And again, don't forget to ask for help, and always network all the time. And that's it for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for all that insight and highlights, and for sharing your experience so far with us. And, this is January 2021, so it has been an interesting year so far, and we have had to modify many of our experiences, but thankfully many of our preceptors were able to do virtual experiences if they weren't able to do it in person. So we worked hard on doing that. So thanks. One of the questions that often comes up is tuition and fees and cost. I know that's a big topic for many people looking at different programs. Ours is based on credits. So depending on the program, if you're coming into the MSCN DI program, the total typically for 42 credits is around $29,500 for that 2-year program. If you're just doing the postmaster's dietetic internship, it's around $10,500 for those 15 credits, based at least on this year's tuition rates, which were actually the same as last year's. We did not increase tuition in any way. So that's why it says 2019, 2020, because 2020 and 2021 is the same. So we just have a slight increase or differential between in-state and out-of-state for our online program, but it's not very significant at all. We actually are able to finance your education through financial aid, since we are a university. And many times during the first year of graduate school, during that first year when you're just doing the MSCN program, many of our students apply for our graduate assistantships. And so this is a GA position that works with a faculty member, and you provide about 5 hours a week of online virtual assistance to that faculty member. And in return, you get a 3 credit tuition waiver. So it's a great way to finance your education if you're looking for some assistance. And we have multiple GA positions, not only within our department, because we have a pretty large department of faculty, as well as a university level. So there's a lot of opportunities there. We also have, if you're employed right now, employer reimbursement. Our assistant director of the graduate school can help work with you to see what your employer needs and what they're willing to offer during your master's degree and the internship. The internship is full-time though, so during that time we do not recommend working a full-time job. We don't have a part-time option, even though we have scaled back some of the hours. Some students may do a part-time job maybe on the weekends or in the evenings, but we don't recommend a full-time job while doing the internship that second year of graduate school. Here's some master's degree and dietetic internship application requirements, which you can find all of this on our website. Really, it just means that when you apply to the graduate school, you would apply with an online application, you would send your official transcripts, there's a professional goals statement, and for the graduate school, we recommend 2 letters of recommendation. Once you're actually in our graduate program and you apply to our dietetic internship, it's a typical DICUS application, the Dietetic Internship Central Application System, which you usually put 3 letters of recommendation, and you would upload your secured preceptors as well. As a postmaster student, if you already have a DPD and a verification statement, you would apply through DICUS. We go through spring match, and you would start in the summer of that year. And we have a lot of information on our website on how to apply specifically to the postmaster's DI once you do that. And just a couple more highlights about our program this year. I was really amazed and so thankful that 4 out of our 19 interns actually received scholarships from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, or AND. We have Jenny Lee, Mackenzie Doherty, Chaplain Mizochi, and Megan Lively. Some of them were really helpful financially to help them with our internship this year. We help support, and I send out scholarship applications all the time for our students, again, to help with the financial burden that comes with the master's and dietetic internship. So we are really proud of all of their hard work and their ability to get those scholarships. So that concludes my portion of the program. If you have any questions about the actual master's degree, Dr. Gilboy can be contacted at her email address. And for any dietetic internship questions, I'm Becky Wojcik, and I can be contacted. And any specific graduate school application questions, Evan Daney can be contacted. And then this is just a picture of all of us. Thankfully, Dempsey was in Philadelphia in 2019, and that was our first cohort of interns, and most of us were able to attend and actually see each other in person. So it was a really wonderful time to be together. So thank you so much for having me, Erin.
Right. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump right into the 5 questions that I ask every program that comes on the podcast. And these were put together with the help of my students. So the first one is there one thing in particular that you just love to see when you're reading an applicant's personal statement?
That's a good question. So one thing that we like to see when an applicant in their personal statement, I think what I love to see is their specific personal story is what I like to see, what makes them really interested in nutrition and why they want to come to our particular program. Sometimes too, students might have struggled in a certain area. So if they have a place in their grades that maybe they're not so proud of, or a time it took them longer to finish their program, because we're not a school that looks specifically just at GPA. We look a lot about at a potential applicant's experience and their life experience. So I really like to see the story and how that is integrated into their academic world.
So my next question is a true or false question. So true or false, an applicant's resume should be 1 page and 1 page only. Either way, why?
So that should be, in my opinion, it is false. An applicant's resume should reflect their experience and their academic career and any leadership roles or skills that they want to highlight. And I actually highly recommend it not be one page unless that's all they have to put on there. I see often that students, if they follow that rule of only having one page, they leave out so much. For example, I know even our students, they have to do a ServSafe certification at their at their senior year. And many times they don't even put that on their resume. And it's so important to see that. It's a great accomplishment that they've done. Or if they were in sports or involved in a job that might not have been related to nutrition and dietetics, for me, even if they babysat for maybe 5 years, like that shows that they were able to hold a job and do a great job with that family. So I really don't think that it should be limited to one page.
All right. So what is one thing that an applicant may do, and this could be in their application or in some interaction that you have with them, what is one or more things that they could do that might raise a red flag for you to where you would think maybe this person isn't the best fit for our program?
Sometimes the first red flag is an incomplete DICUS application. So if there's things that are left out, for example, for a distance program, we really need to have uploaded the supplemental materials. So we require at least, I believe, a community and a clinical preceptor that's secured. If those aren't uploaded and that the directions aren't followed, that's a red flag. Also, if an applicant isn't prepared. So we usually do online interviews for those eligible candidates. And I'm usually one that's very organized, and I send out a Zoom link and a time and a date and everything like that. So if an applicant has either not responded or maybe is late or isn't prepared to answer the questions, that would be a red flag for me.
Even though the program's relatively new, so far, what is maybe one thing you're trying to work on to make the experience for your interns even better?
Yeah, as a new program, it's been interesting. We get feedback after every course and every rotation. So what's unique to Westchester is, we have our internship courses at the same time as their experience. So we are trying to make sure that what they're doing for our course is also beneficial in their supervised practice site. So one of the things that me coming into this role, I never wanted our students to do quote unquote busy work. Anything that they do in our program, I think it should be beneficial for their learning experience, but then also beneficial for the site or the preceptor that they're in. So for example, in our community rotation, they do a large community planning project. And so we look at that to make sure that it's helpful for the actual site, that they could implement it in some way after the intern has left, and that the intern really is able to do it from start to finish, and that they could replicate that at another site in another way. So we look at all that and are always working on making sure that those kind of projects and experiences are beneficial for both.
All right. So my last question of the 5 is a 2-parter. And the first part is, what would be the 3 best adjectives, descriptors, or phrases to describe your program overall?
Online, I think, is one of the best adjectives to describe it, to be honest with you. It's affordable. And I also think that this isn't necessarily an adjective, but it's very good at preparing you. It's a wonderful preparatory place to be, especially at the graduate level. I think that our students really are able to take their experience that they've been in and the graduate level education and apply it in a way that you might not have at the undergraduate level. So I think it really prepares people.
All right. So the second half is very similar to the first. Same thing. 3 adjectives, descriptors, or phrases to describe your ideal applicant.
I would say that they would be mature and be open and experienced. And experienced from a perspective of having, like I said before, kind of a well-rounded work and volunteer or some type of application of their knowledge already in the workplace or a volunteer or academic setting.
Based off of your first class that finished, how did they do on the RD exam?
Yeah, good question. We're still kind of a little backlogged with getting that information. I do know, I'm looking at my chart up on the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of the 9 that we had the first year have already passed. Some of them, so depending on when you graduate from our program, you're either finished in May and you get your verification in June, or you're finished in usually around July and you get your verification in August. So we still have some that haven't even taken the exam yet, especially with this global pandemic. It's been an interesting year for them to schedule. So, but I was very proud of the 4 or the 5 that have taken it so far and have told me that they've passed. We do questions within each course to prepare students for the RD exam. So those are incorporated in all the classes.
That was my next question that we were. All right. So thinking about some of the changes that you've had to do because of COVID, are there any changes that you had to make that you think you might keep around because maybe it turns out that that particular program element maybe flows a little bit better in a virtual format?
Yeah, great question. So we made a lot of changes. I'm sure a lot of programs did. One was we were allowed to decrease the in-person hours. So we will probably keep that around as long as the accreditation standards continue. Instead of 1,200, they're allowing 1,000 hours. Mm-hmm. We felt like that fit better with scheduling and also with rotations. Especially we pared down a little bit about the community and food service hours. So they used to be 300 and they went down to around I think it was 256. So, but we still completed all the necessary accomplishments and projects in those. The other thing that we did is that you could have seen that we flip-flopped. So we took clinical that was supposed to be in the fall and put it in the spring. That provided us a little bit of more flexibility to place students and kind of wade through this pandemic to see if we could get more sites. We'll likely keep that. I think that it's nice to kind of ease into the internship into community and food service and then flow into clinical in the second half. You get some confidence, and a lot of students felt like they got their feet wet and then were able to go into clinical the second half. The other thing that I think that we'll keep around is absolutely the ability to have a virtual preceptor. Some of our preceptors weren't sure if they were going to be able to support that environment, but I felt like we had a lot that really did such a great job working virtually for a site and still being able to complete their competencies. So if preceptors are willing to do that, I think that might be something that we'll keep around.
Perfect. Well, those were all the questions that I had. So to close us out with this episode, I'd like each of you to give us a little take-home message to potential applicants this year or anytime in the future. We'll start with Rebecca.
Okay. So pretty much just try to stay organized and like I said, try to just be on top of it ahead of time because you don't want to wait everything last minute. Always try to be prepared and always reach out to people. Don't be scared to reach out to people. They'll be more than happy to help. And if they aren't, then reach out to somebody else. And good luck.
And my take-home message is to really find the program that best suits you and do your research behind what you want in an internship and probably a master's degree now that that's being required in 2024, and really find what speaks to you. I think that makes such a difference now that we can't necessarily go to places and do open houses. I think it's nice to get a feel for the school, the faculty, and then maybe reach out to former or current interns to see what their experience is, because that speaks volumes to people. And not only just in the internship process, but just in this year of 2021, I say to stay hopeful There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and we will make it through together. And I just hope that everybody finds their journey and their way to becoming a registered dietitian. And if that part of that journey is Westchester, we welcome you.
All right. Well, thank you to both of you for being with me on this episode. And for those at home who are interested in the program at Westchester University, I provided a link to their program page if you want to get in touch with Becky or anyone else at Westchester. And don't forget, as always, like this video and subscribe so you never miss an episode with another awesome dietetic internship. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.